Hi, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, it is a trifecta edition, and I'm actually going to move my camera space down here. There we go. So, above me now in my Zoom space, I have author Eliot Rahal. Hi, Eliot. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You are joined by a wizard, it appears.
That's Thoughtful Wizard. If you want a correct title for him, it's his name is Thoughtful Wizard, named after
Thoughtful wizard.
my friend Steve O'Harvey, not related to the other Steve O'Harvey, who used to have a parody band in Chicago. And yeah, he had a guy named Thoughtful Wizard, so I named it after him.
Nice, nice. And on this side of the Zoom space, I have artist currently creating art, Phillip Sevy. Philip, thank you for uh, advertising for the DARE program. That takes me back to junior high school, which is what they called it. Now they call it middle school, but that takes me way back.
You're welcome. I'm happy to bring us all back to 80s and early 90s nostalgia with the most effective anti-drug program of all time.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much. Well, welcome to you both, and thanks for joining. I know that we're talking about a book series on this episode. Don't forget your briefcase, but I know that Elliot, you're responsible for something called Under the Influence. Takes me back to the DARE program, and Bleed Them Dry. And Philip, you have created in a variety of spaces: Tomb Raider, X-Men, Triage, Kepler, being a few of those.
Yep.
So how did your forces combine? How did that happen?
I
Um,
mean,
you can go first, Phil,
no,
whichever you
say
prefer.
Elliot and I have known each other for almost probably 10 years at this point. I was doing the math this morning, just met through kind of mutual friends at conventions and parties and
At a
just in
party
re
specific, at a very awkward party specifically. I remember. I'm pretty sure that was like maybe before then, but that was like my first like distinct memory of like hanging out with Phil. It was like this terrible party where neither of us kind of knew where to stand
So
or
we stood
how to
next to each
stand.
other. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, solidarity. And and then I pitched this idea, and I really wanted to create it alongside an artist, and I really wanted to create it, have the opportunity to create it alongside a friend as well. And I was looking at Phil's. Hopefully, you didn't freeze because you look like you froze, Jason. I was looking at Phil's art style, and I thought it would be really complementary in tone to what the book is trying to accomplish, which is like, I need somebody who can draw really good action and
Hmm.
draw sort of, realistic bodies and realistic things, but also at the same time, like, be flexible enough to inject some humor into it. I'm just being careful with my words because I'm just trying to think exactly what to say. But you know, um, it's a really fine line, right? Because like you don't want to with comedy and action. It's like you don't want to like make it too over the top. And like I think Phil brings like a really nice polish and also like that ability to sort of work with that. And then yeah, I'll just keep rambling, but like all those three things I thought were just sort of the perfect collision for me personally.
Yeah. Anything that you'd like to add there, Phil?
No, not really. I know Elliot and I had talked a little bit about the project as he was early on kind of looking for artists, and then he reached out and asked, and we did some different kind of tests to see if we could find the right kind of style and tone and approach, and that went through a couple variations and evolutions until us in Mad Cave kind of decided on a look for the book, and then we've just been off to the races ever since. We've been working on this, I want to say, for 2.5 years now.
Off to
So
the very slow paces, which is mostly my fault.
I'm
But
it's both of us are very busy, and we've had a great team that supported us as we've been chipping away at the project for a while now.
I would agree. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. But yeah, I mean, I'd say that's how how that just like the art team came into being, and then Phil was also really integral in terms of the color choice, and Phil was the one who offered up Ornia and suggested a series of color artists for the palette.
It's nice. What, taking it back a bit further, what brought the two of you to the comics medium and to storytelling?
Oh, start. Why don't you start us off, Elliot?
Um, Honestly, it almost feels like half accident, half on purpose. Sometimes,
Hmm.
you're catching me in a really darkly reflective mood, though. So, like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel totally out of control over my own life. But I was a weird little boy who liked to perform, and I needed people to pay attention to me. So I started my career doing stand-up comedy, and I was reading comics, and then I started making them after college, and I got a couple picked up, and then like it just sort of like overtook everything for me, like slowly but surely, like started overtaking all of my other creative pursuits, including stand up. But I think the thing that draws me to it is like I've always thought visually. It's just a product of my brain, and comics always made sense for me as a result of that. And then the training in stand up, a lot of comics writing is pacing. The best you can do is pacing. And stand up is a lesson in timing. It's all about timing. And then, like, I like to make stuff because I'm a little soft boy, that's it.
Yeah, and I came through comics kind of my earliest memories, honestly, as a 2 year old involved superheroes, and I've been reading comics my whole life. And again, 9 years old, I picked up Chris Claremont and Jim Lee's X-Men #1, and I just looked at
Hmm.
the art and I was like, this is what I want to do. And it took me, I think, another 30 years before I got to draw X-Men professionally, but I just, spent my teenage years reading Wizard magazine and drawing samples, and I took a couple years away in college and I got a degree in corporate finance and worked for Goldman Sachs for a few years, and I realized I hated that. It was miserable. And I quit. I went back to school, went to art school, got a master's degree in sequential art, and then just started, working my way into the industry. And it's been a little bit of a long road as it can be, but at the same time, I just have always told stories, and I don't see a way in which I can live happy and live comfortably if I'm not trying to tell a story, whether that's through art or through writing or a combination of the two or any type of way. I have to be telling stories.
Nice. Elliot, one of the things I'm picking up as a theme is humor. You were talking about the balance of humor and kind of the entry through comedy. So this might be a wonderful moment just for listeners to know a little bit about Don't Forget Your Briefcase.
Yeah, I mean, the book itself is about the person who carries the nuclear briefcase, which is a briefcase like that contains all of the nuclear codes and launch sites and like basically information regarding a nuclear strike. A person's carrying that around next to the president of the United States at all time, and this is about what happens when one of those people accidentally, mistakenly loses that briefcase to a 10-year-old kid who likes to bring a briefcase to school. And it's just like this farce about a lot of different things, but that is like the bare bones minimum on its level. It is a comedy. The book is supposed to be a comedy of errors, right? That gets way too serious.
Yeah, balancing that tone out. I imagine the art takes part of that balance, the writing takes part of that balance. What was the process like of collaborating with those kind of ingredients in mind?
I mentioned before we kind of went through a couple iterations to find the right look, and I think some of my early approaches were perhaps a little bit more over the top and a little more comedy than what we ended up settling on, and kind of where we decided was an area that, while playing up the character acting of the characters, it's an art style that is very serious in its approach, and not necessarily dour, but like I'm drawing it as if I were drawing like a thriller, which didn't have any humor to it, but I'm still having the spaces where the characters are interacting, trying to get through the emotion in a way that is a little more cartooned or exaggerative than something I would be doing on like an X-Men or a Venom book. So it kind of for me has found that sweet spot between doing what I will do kind of on like a big two superhero book, but giving me the ability to be a little bit more expressive in how the characters are interacting with each other. So I think striking that tone on an art wise is that it plays itself fairly serious, because I mean we are talking about the not only the absurdity of like why would we walk around with the tools to our own annihilation in our pockets, but also like it is a serious defense and weapons and military and the ways in which people take these things seriously.
Right, and that's the thing I just wanted to jump off of real quick. I forgot to mention Phil's acting, which is why one of the reasons why I was so attracted to the art style, and his expression work in this is really been thrilling for me. But and then but yeah, what he's saying and just echoing that, it's like it depends. Like there's a lot of different genres of comedy. I'm not gonna say like going over the top or wacky is like bad or whatever, right? It depends on what you're doing. But for this particular work, it reminds me of a lot of there's a saying about the movies Scary Movie, right? On the set of Scary Movie, everyone was taking that shit very seriously, right? Because they were making a
Right.
movie, right? Like and like Midnight Run or is Lethal Weapon a comedy? Is 48 Hours a comedy or an action? Like it's like I felt like I mean, even to some degree, like fractions like Hawkeye Run, like it's like these are like you have to do it face forward, right? Like, and I didn't want to like hide behind an art style. I thought that would make it less funny, actually, um, in my opinion. I had a really difficult time articulating that feeling throughout the entire process. It's really upsetting that I've finally gotten a handle on it.
You've practiced it, you've processed it. It's right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so often in comedy, you need that straight player, right? You need the straight man or straight woman that's sort of like they're taking it extremely seriously, even though it's this outlandish or very even darkly comic sort of commentary that comes through in the humor.
well, like in contrast too, it's just like we are deeply serious people living in a completely absurd world, right? Like Phil Shirt,
Mhm.
very good example of it. Like like I don't know if you guys hey like learned this in high school or whenever the first time you learned this, but they'll talk about in high school textbooks briefly, if you're lucky, totalitarian regimes, right? And
Mhm.
it's like one of the hallmarks of a totalitarian regime is they'll talk about how the kids are calling the police on their parents, right? And it's like, oh, kids are informing on their parents, and it's like, well, what is dare but teaching children how to identify and like inform on their parents, right? Because like who else is going to have they might make an excuse about like drug readiness and knowing what things are, sure, but also like there is like you see what you see at home, and like there might be a different middleman, a different step, but it's like it's all about like how things are presented and how things are viewed, and the book is political in a sense, but not really in terms of like we're talking about like modern like political parties or anything. To me, it's more about like if you're trying to get heady with it, it's more of like taking stock of what we have and what is this and like what are we working with right now, like, you know, and it's like this is fucking crazy, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I love what you're also illustrating. We've talked about X-Men, we've talked about Venom, the superhero kind of aspects of comics, but then social commentary is a great avenue that comics can explore as well. So they can do so much in the types of stories that you want to tell.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to apply that much importance to what I'm doing, but that's just because I'm too like uncomfortable by that.
No, but I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah, I
important
get you.
to yeah, I think it's also important to point out the power of telling a story. And I think the ways in
Mhm.
which so many of us have come to the understandings of how we see the world and what the world means to us has come through kind of that ability to distill really complex and sometimes what feel like dangerous concepts into kind of these stories which allow us a little bit of distance but at the same time are saying very important things. I think some of the most important kind of realizing the humanity of different types of people in my life has come initially through seeing it presented in stories in such a way where what was being said was so important, but it was because it was a story. I as a kid or as a teenager or whatnot, I felt safe to read, like, oh, this isn't challenging me, this just is really really cool. But then you start to think about and examine and really feel what it is that the story is telling you. So I think regardless of what it is, the grandiosity or the scope of a story that you're telling, all good stories have something important to say. And I think that is kind of the beauty of comics, is whether it's through superheroes or through anything in the world, good comics are telling us in a story and teaching us something about our own humanity.
I would wholeheartedly agree with Phil, and a lot of my own personal faith is like based off of pretty much what he just said. So
And that's what keeps you going to the next issue or connecting with the story or wanting to read it again. Yeah, it's at least one of the things.
yeah, the revealing of things, and I mean, also just like it's like, yeah, we attach this importance to it, but if it's just, I don't know, we can go on and on and on about it. Like, I mean, but it's also supposed to be just fun too. Like, I mean, Doctor Love does a lot of incredible work. Like, but like, you could say and do all of those things in Doctor Strangelove, but if it wasn't a good movie, you wouldn't watch it again. You know what I mean?
Mhm. It's funny that you bring up Doctor Strangelove. I almost made that comparison a few beats ago when we were talking about the plot of the book. And the other thing that just makes that work is that person that gets to embody or tell the story, Peter Sellers. I mean, getting
Right.
to bring that across in that way, or I guess it's Steve Coogan that's doing kind of like a play version or has done that of that story.
I didn't realize that.
I think they're doing a
Yeah, I saw.
production in London or something, make it into a stage play, is what I heard.
That
Yeah,
sounds like
it
something.
looks amazing.
I'm sure. I my head's been in a bucket for about 2 years, so I don't know anything. But yeah, the only thing I want to see Bill Burr on Broadway. I want to see that. Anyway, yeah, there is a Doctor Strangelove thing in there, or aspects of that, or of the Death of Stalin, or like, I mean, I love like political comedies and stuff like that. So like, um, I think they're really fascinating, and like, I don't know, like, it's just like, I just think it's just, I don't want to like get too like full of myself or whatever. It's just like, but it's just like, we talk about like the greatest generation, and it's like, were they though? And it's like, they came home from the war and like built like a Rube Goldberg device that could destroy everyone within 45 minutes. Like, like, is that something that's good? Like, and now like the only safe thing to do is maintain it, because like, as a result of it, like, everyone else has their own little like end of the world device now too, because they had to like keep up with the Joneses. Like, like I don't know. Like, it's just like looking at all those things. But the way I try to do it is not through the plot, but through our character, which is like Vanessa Honkin. Which I will say, the names in the story are the things that are the most ridiculous to me. Like, because I named her Colonel Van Honkin, and I think that's very funny. But yeah, the story is through the lens of I know that there are a lot of war comics and there are a lot of veterans, but I think it's being done through the lens of a broken veteran, and I can't say I read enough comics right now or anything of the matter to say that's a story that needs to be told, but I do think it is more of a story that needs to be told than people want to give credit for, and talking about these people who feel very removed from like hip culture, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
As you were writing, since you had the artist in mind, you were talking about some of the expression, some of the acting. Was that something that you built in, or was that kind of a bonus surprise process that the two of you went through as you were creating?
For me, it was like that's what I wanted, because I just know how I write a story, and I know it's gonna get like it's gonna have moments that I want that are small that need to be big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and working in this specific story, in this type of story, you're like, oh, this story can't live and die by action sequences or fight scenes or something like that. It really exists through the way the characters express themselves and the way they interact with each other, and how do you get that emotion across, and how do you find those moments. And so yeah, it's just part of the task and fun challenge of a project is like, okay, this one needs this. What can we do to try and evoke that and elicit this emotion? And I think I've always felt that when I'm working with a writer, my responsibility is to take their words and elevate them. If I can execute them, that's great. At least I did my job. But if I can find a way to elevate them, then I feel like I'm adding something to the project. And I guess it remains to be seen, and it will be seen by the people who buy the book. But hopefully we did a good job of that.
Yeah, I try not to think about it, but I love that though, like, because like you know uh, part of the problem of working with a guy like Phil is like you listen to his experience with comics and it's very intimidating. And I didn't become like a hardcore comics reader until, I would argue, late in life, by meaning like 15 or 16. You know what I mean? But sometimes it feels like I'm late to the game consistently because I missed out on a lot of stuff. And he's got this. Phil's just more technically skilled than I am. So like, if he sees a way to accomplish something better, like I'm like, go for it. It makes me feel bad. I'm like, I should have done that to begin with, but like, I want to go for it. I try not to say no to him.
No, but I mean, I think that's the fun part of collaboration in comics as you're working with people, whether it's line artist and writer or colorist or letterer or things like that. You are finding ways in which to kind of take things to the next level. And there's been times where I'm like, oh, I got this idea. Does that work? And Elliot's like, yeah, let me rewrite the script. And I was like, no, I'm drawing it right now. It's okay. Like, as long as we're okay with it, I can do it right now. That's kind of the fun part of being on the artist side, is when you're working with a writer, we can kind of spitball and change things here and there if there's potentially a way to kind of elevate the words a little bit in a different way.
Yeah.
I just think that's what it's supposed to be. Like that's all.
I was going to say this is the part where it's like, say something nice about the publisher. Like, what was it like working with Mad Cave? I always throw that question out, and no one's ever been like, it was terrible. I'll never work with this publisher again. So, anything that you'd like to say about that part of the process?
I mean, other than my gratitude, they were patient. in terms of negotiating the terms, and we went back and forth, and then they've been very patient in terms of deliverables because it's had a long production line, and Phil and I both are constantly working, and we both have families, and you know, their patience with that has been it's just been a huge relief for me personally.
Yeah, we've got a great editor in Marla Isaac, and Marla's been fantastic, just kind of routinely checking in, and then anything that we need. I think it's probably a little bit, and I haven't specifically talked to them about this, but I know you are acting as an editor for a creator-owned project, so finding the space in which, like, where can I be of the most value to my team? Because we weren't hired to write this book. We're not writing like a Thundercats book or drawing one. So I think finding kind of that spot of where they can help us out and help us kind of get things wrapped up and as best as possible and interfacing with all the teams and Marla's
Yeah,
been great, and I sing their praises because they've been really keeping the wheels on track, and now we're just a couple months away from launch, so we are here.
I would also like to echo Marla's uh, help because they did not bring this book into the fold. They actually stepped into it to edit. They were given to it because there's a changeover in departments, just like good things happening for everybody kind of thing. But it required a different editor at that point. So they had to create not they they've been working in comics for a very long time and on some cool stuff. So it's like and with other creators. So it's like it's always very challenging to walk in, especially on a creator-owned book, and like be a little bit almost of a stranger to it, and like ingratiate yourself and um, kind of get into it. And they did an incredible job. Also, like thank you to Chaz Pengram. I don't know how to say his last name. I said his first name right for the first time ever just now, but he was a big champion of fighting for this book as well. And if he's listening, I'd like to say thank you.
Anywhere that people can go to find the book and find out information, follow up.
Just pre-order it and maybe talk about it online. Pre-order it through Mad Cave. I don't know how the internet works anymore. It feels very broken, and like I don't know how to like talk and like get people like talking. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. It feels very difficult and
I've got a couple
overwhelming.
suggestions. I can point people some places. So you
Yeah.
can
Oh no. I just yeah. Continue, Phil.
I
I'm
mean, you can
sorry.
pre-order it from your comic book store right now. I don't think final order cutoff is until May, so we've got another month and a half or so. I think Mad Cave just today announced a digital storefront that they are opening up, so you can now get your books, digital books, directly from Mad Cave. Mad Cave also does really cool like pre-order bundles from their website, where you can pre-order the entire series physically and have it sent to you. So they have both a great relationship with retailers, but also their individual storefront if you are in a spot that does not have easy access to a comic book store or something of that nature. So those are some of the best places to get it. The first issue is out, I want to say June 26th, somewhere in
Mm-hmm.
there, third week of June.
Yeah, and talk about it. Also, reach out to me directly, and if you agree to pre-order 10 copies, I will give you the PDF myself. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that, but I said it. You still got to pre-order it though, 10 times. I know that doesn't make any sense, but
Well, many thanks to you both, and glad to have you back anytime.